White House says Iran still seeks deal despite U.S. strikes. Iran says U.S. strikes damaged power grid in Bandar Abbas. And Labour elects Sandy Burnham as new leader ahead of premiership. Seven p.m. Cairo local time for the news on the top of the hour, and here are the news in detail. The White House said Iran continues to hold talks with the United States and still wants to reach an agreement despite ongoing U.S. strikes. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Iran continues to engage in talks with the United States and has expressed a desire to reach an agreement despite continued U.S. strikes in recent days. Speaking during a news briefing, Leavitt said she had spoken with President Donald Trump about an hour earlier, adding that Tehran remained interested in a deal because it was facing what she described as devastating U.S. military strikes. She said the recent strikes were launched after Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding by opening fire on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Leavitt added that President Trump would not allow such attacks to go unanswered and was determined to ensure Iran pays the price for them.
In this speech with a little bit of honesty and a little bit of integrity, because it will shock you if you have an honest eye listening to the president tonight, and everything he is saying will be backed by
Iran's state news agency said 7 people were killed in U.S. strikes targeting bridges in the southern coastal city of Bandar Khamir. Iran's state news agency IRNA reported that U.S. strikes targeting 5 bridges in the southern coastal city of Bandar Khamir killed 7 people. The report did not provide further details about the identities of the victims or the extent of the damage caused by the strikes. Iran said U.S. strikes damaged electricity transmission lines in Bandar Abbas and nearby villages. Iran's Ministry of Energy said U.S. strikes caused damage to electricity transmission lines in the southern city of Bandar Abbas and nearby villages. The ministry added that power has been restored in some areas and that the electricity network has returned to stable operation across parts of the region. It also urged residents to reduce electricity consumption during peak hours to help maintain stable energy supplies in southern Iran. The U.S. military said it has completed a new wave of strikes against Iran as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reiterated that Tehran does not control the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth posted an image of a destroyed building on X, commenting on an earlier post in which he said Iran does not control the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command CENTCOM announced that it had completed its latest major wave of strikes against Iran. CENTCOM said the operation concluded at 9:40 p.m. U.S. Eastern Times or 1:40 GMT, marking the 6th consecutive night of U.S. military operations. The U.S. military said it has completed another major wave of strikes against military targets in Iran. U.S. Central Command CENTCOM announced that it completed its latest major wave of strikes against Iran, marking the 6th consecutive night of American military operations. CENTCOM said U.S. fighters, aircraft, drones, and warships used precision-guided munitions to strike dozens of Iranian military targets. According to the command, the targets included coastal civilians and defense sites, military logistics facilities, and naval capabilities. British police have charged a man suspected of assisting a foreign intelligence service in a case linked to Iran. British police said they have charged a 39-year-old man on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. Authorities said the investigation is related to Iran but did not disclose further details about the alleged activities. British maritime authorities say a tanker was struck by an unidentified projectile off the coast of Oman, with no reported injuries. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency said a tanker was struck by an unidentified projectile on Thursday while sailing about 19 nautical miles east of Kasab in Oman. The agency said all crew members were safe. For more on today's developments and how they reflect on the region, let's go to our newsroom with Mark Summers. Mark.
Thank you very much, Moni. Yes, to help us make sense of these rapidly unfolding developments, we're now joined by the international relations expert, Dr. Mohammed Osman. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on Q News. So what do you make of these strikes, these continued strikes from the United States against Iran?
Thank you for having me, Mark. It seems now that we are entering a new phase of the conflict. And I think it's safe to assume now that the ceasefire is over, at least for President Trump and the Iranians. It doesn't seem that they are abiding by it anymore. None of them are publicly declaring that they are abiding by any permanent cessation of hostilities. And of course, on the ground, daily limited exchanges between both countries do transpire on the ground with these continuous U.S. strikes that are increasingly escalating over the past few days. Yesterday, we have witnessed a 7-hour campaign of nonstop bombing of southern Iran, and even the target bank has substantially expanded. Now it's not even limited to military targets. It now has expanded to include basic civilian infrastructure, or at least infrastructure of dual usage, according to the Americans, because they claim that they are not targeting civilian infrastructure. However, targeting bridges and roads and whatnot is indeed targeting civilian infrastructure. And of course, Iran considered this a significant escalation and retaliated by attacking neighboring countries and also attacking as far as Syria. But what was significantly remarkable, Mark, was this attack on Kuwait, which targeted a desalination plant and a power plant, which led even to some power outages, according to the official statement by the Kuwaiti authorities. This is a very significant escalation, and it is an indicator that things might even go completely out of control if the current trajectory of increasing escalation persists, Mark. Because even though both countries do not wish to slide back into an open war, however, this current trajectory of back and forth attacks and strikes between them could actually lead to just that, even though both of them do not really want it.
So you mentioned there the expanding scope of the attacks by Iran. Why do you think they are seeking to escalate the situation?
I think they seek to deter the United States. They seek to convey a message to the Americans is that if you keep attacking us and if you keep expanding the scope of your attacks, we will do the same. We will reciprocate in the same manner, at least to the best of our capabilities. And indeed, the Iranians are doing that. They are expanding the target bank in the neighboring countries, of course, and also they are expanding horizontally the geographic scope of attacks, because now they're not only attacking Gulf states, they are attacking Iraq rather profusely, leading to 9 deaths, these attacks on Iraqi Kurdistan. Yesterday, attacking energy infrastructure as well in Iraq, according to some reports, and even attacking as far as Syria. We have seen this alleged attack on a U.S. base in Al-Tanf in Syria. This base has been officially, at least according to the Americans and the Syrians, evacuated as part of the American withdrawal from Syria. The Syrians did confirm that Iranian attacks, missile and drone strikes did happen, but that these projectiles landed in empty areas. However, Syria has been targeted for something that wasn't part of the usual Iranian target bank during the phase of open hostilities of the conflict between both Iran and the United States. So this is rather a signal that Iran is willing and able to expand the geographic and regional scope of this conflict if the United States persists on expanding the target bank of its attacks inside Iran, especially now, Mark, that there are genuine fears inside Iran that these limited strikes by the United States could be a prelude to a much wider escalation that might even entail a landing on an amphibious landing on Iran's shores to capture the islands or something.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in just a moment. But do you think there's any chance that President Trump could once again halt the military operations against Iran? He's done it before, perhaps for discussions, or do you think we've now reached a stage, for the time being at least, where that train's left the station, we've moved on from that?
I think there are very, very slim chances of the diplomatic track being salvaged, or whatever is left of it, Mark, at this point. However, of course, the chances of this happening are being significantly diminished with every passing day of these back and forth attacks between both Iran and the United States. This is unfortunately the reality of the state of affairs when it comes to this situation. I do believe that both countries, in one way or the other, might be still committed to resuming the diplomatic pathway at some point. However, both of them seek to significantly improve their negotiating positions before resuming any talks. And unfortunately, the only means they believe they could improve these negotiating positions is by taking certain military measures and carrying out attacks in order to create a new equation or a new equilibrium between the both of them that might, at least on the part of the Iranians, that might allow them to retain their ability to negotiate relatively on par with the United States. However, this approach adopted by both the Iranians and the Americans could, and most probably, Mark, will backfire and lead to a much wider escalation if it's not contained. If it's not contained, and if cooler heads do not prevail.
And as you were alluding to there, President Trump has warned that the strikes could expand to include more Iranian infrastructure deeper into the country, and deploying ground troops has not been ruled out, as you mentioned. Now, in the past, perhaps, when we've spoken, that seemed unlikely. Do you feel now that ground troops is becoming more likely as President Trump is perhaps pushed into a corner?
Since the beginning of the conflict, Mark, I have retained a view to the effect that the issue of deploying ground troops was never disqualified or off the table. I believe, and I still believe, it is a possibility, maybe not an eventuality, but a possibility that might very well take place, unfortunately, because the Americans are desperate to break the deadlock one way or the other and to gain a certain form of leverage that would break the status quo and break this stalemate between both Iran and the United States. And the U.S. maybe the idea of capturing Karg Island to strangle Iran's ability to export oil even further, of course, in addition to the current blockade, and even capturing islands surrounding like Abu Musa and Larak and even Qashm and others in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz. This would basically deny Iran the ability to effectively control the strait as they are doing now. So these are all options that the Americans might try might elect to attempt to implement in order to gain leverage against Iran. However, of course, it will be a spectacular risk. Understandably, President Trump has been reportedly very, very reluctant to undertake such an operation due to the possibility of casualties or even failing, which would be a huge fiasco, given that the ground troop assets on the ground that the United States is going to deploy are just a few thousand. So, and Iran has over 1 million men at arms.
Well, we shall see what happens, whether that stalemate is broken in the way which you say. Dr. Mohammed Osman, international relations expert, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. Now, we'll continue to follow these developments closely as they unfold further, of course. But now back to you, Mona, in the studio.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for the analysis. And now we move to the developments in the Middle East. Kuwait said an Iranian attack damaged a power and water desalination plant, forcing authorities to activate emergency plans. Kuwait's Ministry of Electricity and Water announced that an Iranian attack targeted a power generation and water desalination station. The ministry said the attack caused damage to the facility, sparked a fire, and affected a number of electricity generation units. It added that emergency response plans were immediately activated to contain the incident, limit its impact, and maintain the stability of the country's power grid. Kuwait has condemned an Iranian missile and drone attack that damaged a power and water desalination facility. Kuwait's foreign ministry condemned the Iranian missile and drone attack that struck a power generation and water desalination station, causing a fire and damaging several electricity generation units. The ministry described the attack as a blatant violation of Kuwait's sovereignty and security and a serious breach of international law. It warned that such actions represent a dangerous escalation that threatens regional security and stability, undermines international legitimacy, and weakens efforts aimed at de-escalation and peaceful solutions. The ministry also stressed Kuwait's sovereign right to take all necessary measures to safeguard its security and stability in accordance with the international law. Bahrain said its air defense systems intercepted and destroyed several Iranian aerial attacks on Friday. Bahrain's General Commander of the Bahrain Defense Forces announced that the country's air defense systems intercepted and destroyed a number of Iranian aerial attacks on Friday. The military did not provide details on the number of incoming targets or the locations where the interceptions took place. Jordan said its armed forces intercepted 3 Iranian missiles targeting the kingdom with no casualties reported. Jordan's armed forces announced that they intercepted 3 Iranian missiles targeting the kingdom. The military said the interceptions were carried out successfully and that no casualties or material damage were reported. Qatar said a child was injured by shrapnel from the interception of an Iranian attack. Qatar's Ministry of Interior announced that a child was injured after being struck by shrapnel resulting from efforts to intercept an Iranian attack. The ministry said security authorities and the civil defense teams immediately activated emergency response plans following the Iranian attack targeting the country on Friday morning. It added that the relevant agencies continue to monitor the situation and implement the necessary measures to ensure public safety. And to world news, Britain's Labour Party has officially elected Andy Burnham as its new leader, clearing the way for him to become Prime Minister on Monday. Britain's Labour Party on Friday officially elected Andy Burnham as its new leader, overcoming the final hurdle before taking office as Prime Minister on Monday. In his first speech after the announcement, Burnham thanked party members for their overwhelming support, saying he was honoured by the confidence placed in him. He said the backing came from the party's affiliated trade unions, socialist societies and 379 Labour members of Parliament, adding that he was ready to lead. Burnham also pledged to restore Labour's connection with communities that he said had long felt neglected, promising to rebuild the party on the foundation laid by previous generations. Ukrainian drones struck a further 12 Russian vessels in the Black Sea. Kiev's drone forces commander said as Ukraine steps up its naval attacks against Moscow. The commander of the unmanned aerial system forces, Robert Brovody, published footage on Telegram said to show strikes on the vessels. Brovody said on Telegram that the targets included 9 dry cargo ships, a tanker, a gas tanker, and a tugboat. He said that brought the total of number of vessels struck this month in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea to 159. The road to the 2026 FIFA World Cup final is almost complete. Mark Summers has the latest from the World Cup. Mark.
Thank you very much, Mona. Let's get into it. And it's a political one tonight because the White House has said that US President Donald Trump will attend the final on Sunday. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday announced that President Trump will attend the 2026 FIFA World Cup final this weekend. The match will see defending champions Argentina face Spain at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Leavitt said Trump's attendance will conclude what she described as the most watched, safest and most successful World Cup ever held in the United States. Spain's Prime Minister and President Trump are expected to attend the World Cup final in New Jersey on Sunday. Reuters reported that Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is set to meet with Donald Trump during the World Cup final on Sunday. The meeting comes as relations between the two leaders remain strained over defense spending and the conflict with Iran. Spain's Prime Minister's office confirmed that Sanchez will travel to New Jersey to attend the final, where Spain will face defending champions Argentina. The politics of football. And now we go back to you, Mona Masali, in the studio.
Well, Mark, the written calls on FIFA for investigating Argentina, and it was described as the most successful. Let's see. That's the end of our news bulletin for this hour. But before we go, here is a quick recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. White House says Iran still seeks deal despite U.S. strikes. Iran says U.S. strikes damaged power grid in Bandar Abbas. And Labour elects Sandy Burnham as new leader ahead of premiership. That concludes this hour's Q News Bulletin. As the days develops, continue to unfold, our coverage continue as well. Stay tuned.